You ever thought that wine would pair well with music? Welcome to House UnCorked, a full, rich, flavored series of podcasts that are all about sharing a story, opinions on wine choices, and pairing that vibe with a live house music set. It's fun, real, raw, and positive conversations between wine pairing and house music. Now, join DJ Dave right now for this week's episode of House UnCorked.
Hey, welcome everybody. This is DJ Dave, and you are listening to House UnCorked episode. Sorry, one second. Let's try that again. This is what happens when you're on a live podcast. You're hearing the background of my phone on the radio station. So listen, welcome. This is DJ Dave. You're welcome to House UnCorked. This is the very first podcast of 2020. And I have a very special guest, a longtime friend from high school, Alfe Manias. I want to thank Alfe for coming in tonight. Alfe, welcome. Happy New Year.
Absolutely. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here, because obviously we go way back, and and I never even knew that you were a Formula One fan even back in high school, and so I guess the car stuff never really came about, and I guess back in high school you were into Formula One, not as much now, but let's say you're getting into it, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. First memories, I guess. Back then it wasn't televised as much. There wasn't the technology that exists today.
Right.
So it was kind of basically getting to see the Montreal F1 on TV.
Right.
Earliest memory, and I can't figure out if it was 83 or 85, was seeing Ferrari win and all the fans rushing the track. So I think it was 85 with Alboreto.
Gotcha. We talk about addictions. We talk about the good addictions, and seeing that Alfe is, a true Formula One fan, and by his posts and his social media and so forth, he's a diehard fan. Now, I guess he's a Ferrari fan, okay? And how are they doing this year? How did they do last year, anyways, or this season?
Well, I mean, the last few years, Mercedes has dominated. I guess they're the Ferrari of the 2000s. Fantastic driver with Hamilton. I think that last year was very promising. They finally figured out the issue with the power unit. They definitely have one of the fastest cars on the track. Mm-hmm. But, with Formula One, it's more than that. It's aerodynamics, it's tire design, rim design, drivers especially.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And I guess, growing up in the car world myself, I'm surprised we haven't crossed paths on the racing side of things. But when did you start realize that you were starting to get into more of the Formula One? Like what was a year wise? What do you think it was when you first started?
So I was fortunate enough to go to university with a bunch of guys that would go to Formula One every year. Mm-hmm. And my first year was 2001 in Montreal. That was the year that basically Ralph and Michael Schumacher finished first, second.
Right.
So that's when you kind of get hooked. I went with enthusiasts that had the passion for it. Okay. And these were guys that would go to the track first thing in the morning and not leave till the end of the day. And so you kind of learn that way. And then as years went by, you start to develop similar to Canadian hockey. You're not only watching the NHL, but you're watching the OHL, and you're watching who's coming up and who the new drivers are, and who are the new promising stars. So that's where 2019 was an essential year, because there was a lot of driver changes, new contracts, etc. So you saw a lot of new young drivers, and there's even going to be more changes for 2020, right?
Well, just by looking at the website and so forth, the changes in let's say the body style, and we talked about tires and all the technology and the engines. So if you look at it this in the years, explain to us, like back in the day, like say back in the 60s, how the F1 had the front engine configuration, and we talked about that earlier off air, and it was great to share that story. So explain on the first starting of the 60s style.
Well, so Formula One is 70 years old in 2020. During the 50s, all the engines were up front. and he had exhaust hanging off the left side of basically the cars. Ferrari's been there since day one.
Gotcha.
In the 60s, you saw the evolution for better handling, moving the engines to the back. The 60s were the classic looking Formula One cars. Towards the end of the 60s, early 70s became the era of the, floor dynamics, wings to try to keep the cars on the track. It was also, unfortunately, one of the worst eras in terms of car deaths. With the famous James Hunt and Niki Lauda movie that Ron Howard did, that gave kind of glorified that whole era, but it wasn't really a great era for the drivers. The 80s changed a bit. The aerodynamics weren't as significant. It was more horsepower with the V12s and then switching to the V10s.
Gotcha.
And then in the 90s, unfortunately, we had another major death. In the case of Senna in 94, that whole weekend was a write-off.
Right.
With two major deaths and
that was crazy. I remember that. That was crazy.
Nuts. And then the car's safety became the priority, and the cars changed. The aerodynamics changed, and then we went to turbos, and from turbos we're now into the hybrids.
Right.
And we're finally seeing there was about 6 or 7 years where the cars were slower than in the early 2000s. Now we're seeing times a second a lap faster than the race times of the 2000s, which is insane.
It's crazy, the amount of the speed, and I only had the opportunity to go to Montreal and watch these races, and growing up in the car world and racing and so forth, I had the love of the passion of the sounds of the Formula One cars as they scream by you in the corners, and that was a huge turn on because that's what got me going again. I want to hear that again, and I'm sure you hear it as well. The way the engine's configured now, they went with a different style of motor, which is the sound of the exhaust is not there as it was before. And I think that, to me and a lot of people, it would be more of like, that kind of turned me off, and a lot of people sort of just steered away from it, and I don't know if it did for you or not.
So in the early 2000s, you'd leave your hotel in downtown Toronto, and you'd know the F1 cars were on the track on the island because you could hear the cars screaming through all of downtown.
Right.
And they were like kilometers away. So, and then there was the era where you didn't even need earplugs at the track, and you were kind of like the Ferrari Challenge cars were louder, and it was kind of like, I hate to say the word a joke, but it was a joke because the F1 cars were really fast, but you just didn't have that effect, that sound pressure effect.
Right.
And it's in the last 2 years now that they've gone to the wider tires and the power plants that you're starting to feel that pressure in your chest when you're sitting beside the track.
Sure.
So it's back.
I'm glad, because it might get me back to it again. The sound of it is what really boggles my mind. But also the fact is that you have all these. We're gonna touch on technology, but first I want to touch on the fact that when I go watch an F1 race, or even it doesn't matter, even any race, a car race, the strategy of the pit stops is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it'll make you win or lose a race.
Right. I mean, the pit stops now are, what is an average pit stop when a Ferrari comes in?
Pit stop right now, once the car is stopped, is 2.3 seconds.
Jesus.
Red Bull has the fastest time in F1. It's like 1.6 or 1.8. So there's a half second they're gaining in a pit stop for their driver. And then you could have a problem with a speed wrench, problem getting the car off the lift, not getting the wheel nuts tied in properly, and then you're basically, your race is done. You've lost sometimes 50, 60 seconds while the car's sitting there.
So you're done.
You've lost a lot.
You've done. And it's like seeing pit stops like at 2 seconds. I mean, I think it took you 2 seconds to open this bottle of wine you got for us today. Yeah. Faster than, I think they can change tires faster. You can open that bottle of wine.
It's insane, because when you're watching the races, you're waiting for the pit stop. So teams may have a 2 pit stop strategy, a 1 pit stop strategy, depending on whether a 3 pit stop strategy with tires.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's absolutely critical when they pull cars in.
Right.
And a lot of times it's based on traffic. So if there's a bunch of cars in front of you that you're going to have to pass, you're almost better off to come in and do a pit and then have clean air when you come out.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's all the evolution of how your strategy is.
Sure.
And then it's not just that, but you're competing against other teams, so you're watching what they're doing.
Right.
Does Mercedes pit first, then Ferrari pit second, and everybody's throwing their hands in the air, screaming and yelling why they waited, right?
That's crazy, and how that on how all these teams, they kind of work. They obviously have to work against each other because they want to be the first. But the strategy of who's going to come in first is based on obviously position, time, temperature, how much fuel, whatever it may be. It depends on if that person's going to come in, first or not. And that's what I love about it, is the fact that the whole logistics behind the madness in the pits from. You see the guys in like this little mobile cubicle, and they got monitors galore measuring all the telemetry of the car, and it's just mind-boggling how every single person in that team has a job to do. Okay, whether it be one job or 4 jobs, that person's got that one job they got to do to make it perfect, and they all are in sync with each other. So if something happens, they know down the line, they know the cause and effect and where it happened. If the car decided to lose control, suspension issue or whatever, everything is all laid out, and computers will tell exactly where.
It's basically a race won by fractions of a second per lap. And they'll do root cause analysis on what caused it, even right down to the tires. You have a tire that goes in a race.
Sure.
Currently, Pirelli's the supplier of the tires. They take that tire and do a root cause analysis on why it failed.
So does Pirelli does like a tire manufacturer, is only one tire manufacturer that has a contract for us?
So basically, Pirelli supplies all the tires for Formula One. The tires for that track are specifically designed for that track, delivered and mounted at the track. They're put onto the rims that the teams supply them, and then they're dismounted, and the tires go back to Pirelli in Europe.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So after every race, qualifying, practice sessions, it's all it's taken back.
Right.
Wow. That's I did not even know that. I thought many manufacturers had the opportunity with certain teams.
And that's why, it's fractions of a second. So if you look at the 2018 season, during the early part of the season, Mercedes was burning out a lot of their tires because they were getting hot.
Gotcha.
So they did a redesign of the rim center to alleviate heat.
Wow.
Coming through the rim center in through the tire, and then they ended up taking that season, whereas Ferrari had a potential to win in 2018 just from the tire design that Mercedes changed, right?
That's crazy, man.
It's absolutely crazy. So like if you looked at this year, the Ferrari paint job was actually a matte paint job, and they figured out that it was a dimple finish, and it would save them so many hundredths of a second a lap just in aerodynamics.
Through the paint job alone. If you looked at Jesus Christ.
Mercedes car, they had a whole bunch of Mercedes symbols on the back wings of it,
right.
Like the back foil covering the power plant. Those Mercedes symbols weren't flat. They were actually embossed and elevated, and they provided aerodynamic difference. So it's absolutely crazy what these guys do.
And I mean, probably thousands and thousands of hours on the wind tunnel just testing shit like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, holy crap. I mean, that blows my mind.
And the funny part is, and you don't realize this until you look at the technology put into it, a front wing's about $150,000 American, and they're designed specifically for the track. So the car may look the same, but it's actually different from track to track.
So every part of that car, aerodynamic wise, is based on the track.
Potentially, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why it's so crazy. Like a car's worth $18 million American to build.
And they'll wipe out a car in seconds at a practice run or a qualifying.
And it just grenades into a whole bunch of millions of pieces of graphite.
The carbon fiber, the Kevlar carbon fiber, whatever it may be, it's just, I mean, $18 million for a car. I think crazy, I would do a lot more with that $18 million bucks. But hey, listen, I just can't. These guys are brilliant. The engineers, and you talk about the car, the technology of these cars is that. And I thought to myself, you know what? I like the fact that the assistance program, when a driver is using it, would be good. But then I thought to myself, well, I never grew up with when we were racing. We never had that opportunity to have launch control, traction control off the start, assisted braking, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that to me is like, it's a whole different training level of that regardless, because I like the feel of a car. I want to shift a car. I want to brake. I want to launch. I want to feel the tire spin. That's what I want to do. All this technology is crazy.
And that's why now with the DRS, when a car's within a second of the car in front of it and it can open up its rear flap in the back, it's guaranteed to pass. It's just inevitable.
Right.
Because the car in front has to make up the power difference. So if it doesn't have that capacity, it's basically going to get passed. So you'll see a lot of times cars following the car in front will just wait until they're on a straight, and the back flap opens and they're gone. Right past them. It's pretty amazing. So, like, if anybody's really wanting to get into see what F1's about, Netflix did an amazing series on the 2018 season.
Okay.
Supposedly they're coming out with another one for 2019.
Oh, that's cool. That'd be interesting.
And the nice part about it was it focused on the mid-pack of the cars that weren't going to win the championship.
Oh, nice.
And all the evolution of the drivers. It was a major season where the driver changes were going to happen. We had younger people coming through for 2019, so it's a great way to get into it. It actually hooks a lot of people that left F1 for other sports and brings them back into it.
That's all right. I mean, that's what you want. You have a sport that is truly an amazing sport from where it first started back in the 60s to now. And at my shop, I don't know if you knew about it. You probably saw it on my Facebook page, but we had Gilles Villeneuve's Ferrari Formula One car. I think it was 1977 model, and it was at our shop, and it was owned by a predominant collector. Actually, Pink Floyd's drummer owned this car.
Okay.
And Nick Mason.
A huge collection of Ferraris.
Huge collection. So this car happened to be at our shop, at our showroom, and we got it. It wasn't running for years, so our technician got it going and got it running, and just the feel of what this car, on how it looked, how small it is compared to the new cars now, the technology on the way the body style is, the tub is, the flat 12, the boxer style 12 cylinder in it. It was, but to have Gilles Villeneuve, sit in this car, win the Canadian Grand Prix in this car, and to hear it start up and run was just, it was so special. It was emotional. It was crazy.
So the 2018 Grand Prix season in Montreal to celebrate his 50th anniversary of winning.
Right.
His son
Jacques
drove it around the track, and
oh, no way.
And his widow Joanne was there.
Wow.
And it was amazing seeing them go through it.
That would be emotional.
And then you factor the same year, Hamilton beats Senna's pole record, and then he's presented with a race-worn helmet from Senna in the Senna curve 50 yards away from us. So it was just a phenomenal weekend.
That's be incredible to see.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible to see.
So that's why when you know some of the history of F1 and you can see how eventually the records are broken by the new technology and the new drivers,
right,
you get more passion for it. So it's quite amazing to see these things.
Right.
And then, you talked about the cockpits and the design and, how the tub design. I mean, I was there when Kubica crashed in 2007. It was Hamilton's first win ever in a Grand Prix.
Oh, was it?
And that happened right in front of us. We wore a lot of the debris in the
no way.
hairpin at Montreal.
Seriously?
If you YouTube it, you won't believe the crash, cars airborne and the whole works. And we thought he was done. And then he came back and won in 2008. All he suffered was a foot injury. So it's pretty amazing the technology that's gone into these cars since 94.
No kidding.
And all the changes.
I noticed that on the front of it, in the windshield area, or not windshield, but the visor area, it has like a wishbone style.
Yes, they've installed the halo. This is the second year.
Is that what it's called, the halo? Okay.
Yeah, they call it the halo. They've incorporated it even some of the lower classes of racing.
Okay.
When it first came out, everybody hated it. They referred to it as numerous things.
Right.
But just in that season alone, there was one of the races where one of the Renaults got hit from behind and landed on top of the Alfa. And it was Charles Leclerc in the Alfa. And it landed right on top of the halo. So it did exactly what it needed to do.
Wow.
So yeah, it's basically like being in a roll cage.
So it's like a roll cage for your head.
Right.
But also I heard that it will also, any large debris that's going to come flying towards you, it would, instead of, it would just hit that or just
potentially. Yeah. And the other thing too is the sides on the cars have come up to protect the drivers.
Okay.
So literally the driver's in a cockpit.
Right.
And you see them, if you have an opportunity to go to Montreal, Thursdays is free. Anybody can come into the track and walk the pit lane.
Seriously.
And they're there assembling the cars and firing up for the first time.
And you could be right there at the door.
You could be right there basically at the door within 20 feet of where the car would normally stop, and you can see them firing up these cars, and you see the drivers physically
I love that.
fit into it.
Yeah.
So that's the experience, right?
You're right. You said the word experience. If anyone has not experienced this, yes, you watch on TV and you see the whole lapping, the strategy of driving and dive bombing and passing and acceleration and aerodynamics. And basically these cars, when you see it up front and up close, it's a phenomenal different feeling when you're there, because the sound of the engines just go right through your whole body. And it's like, you get this mad rush that you just want to jump in the car and take off with it, But I love these stories that you've shared, because especially on the safety part of it. Now, you also had the opportunity to travel different places to watch F1, and I guess how many countries is the F1 hosted? Like, there's a new one now apparently, right?
Yeah, so there's 22 for the grid for 2020.
Okay.
The Vietnam's coming in.
So Vietnam came in with one, right? Right.
They're looking at adding Miami potentially next year, so the U.S. may have two courses in
right.
addition to, like, they'll have Austin and potentially Miami.
Right.
The question is, how many can you fit in the grid? Because you got to move all these cars from all these different places all around the world.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been going to Montreal since 2001. I've only missed 2 years, which was 2009, the year they didn't have it.
Okay.
And in 2010. And I was there in 2011 when Button ran in the rain, and we were like drenched for hours.
Oh, man.
It was delayed in the whole works.
God, you enjoy that?
Well, you kind of get into it.
You do. You get into it.
Through it, right?
Right.
And you could have a weekend where it's
like hot, 100
really
degrees
hot,
out.
or you could have like in 2016 or was it 2017 where the drivers were wearing snowsuits during the drivers' parade.
Wow.
It was like 5 or 6 degrees, right? I mean, we went and bought poutine just to stay warm. Nobody was eating it. We were holding it.
Just keep it warm. It's like your own little heater. It's your own little heater.
So it's the craziness. I mean, other tracks I've been to, I joined the Scuderia Ferrari Club of Toronto in 2016.
Okay.
That year I did Austin. Austin was amazing. Larger track, faster track.
Weather was consistent.
Weather was consistent that year, yeah. I mean, the last 2 years they've had cold days.
Okay.
In 18 and 19, but then race day's been great.
Right.
2017 had the opportunity to again do Montreal, did Abu Dhabi.
Nice.
Which is a spectacle. I mean, the country's only 47 years old. United Emirates, tons of money. I mean, the track is at night and it looks like you're in sunlight.
Seriously.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now,
there's so much lighting, it's crazy.
I heard about the sand, the wind. Now, do they have special equipment to take, like, to not sweep it, but like how do they get that sand? Because I know the wind comes through there. It's a flat track, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, first of all, it's on a man-made island.
Okay.
So a lot of the sand problems you're not going to have, because basically it's completely state-of-the-art, and it's almost all the wind directions are enclosed with stadium.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So okay.
It's not like bench seating. You have a proper seat. You have a plastic card that's your ticket, and you scan in and out of your grandstand.
Wow.
It's absolutely crazy. Proper washrooms, the whole
Nice.
works. It's top notch. But again, it's at night. The fireworks show at the end is just amazing. You have the similar to Monaco with all the yachts blowing their horns.
Right.
It's absolutely
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Another neat part with Abu Dhabi, and a lot of these racetracks are doing it,
right,
is they'll have venues associated with them where they have, the Friday, the Thursday, the Friday, and the Saturday night and the Sunday night.
Okay.
Different artists come in and play. So I mean, we saw Pink after the race.
Nice.
On Sunday.
All part of your ticket.
All part of your ticket. Free admission.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing. So that was 17. 2018, had the opportunity again to do Montreal, and then I did Monza. And for a Ferrari fan, you have to do Monza. There's nothing like it. With the Ferrari club, you're in VIP seating. You're on the straight.
Wow.
You're basically to the left of the podium.
Nice.
I mean, for those that went this year with the
Sure.
club, with Leclerc winning,
Right.
and fighting off the 2 Mercedes the whole race, it was basically
Nice.
off the hook. Plus the 90th celebration of Ferrari in Milano, and they attended that as well.
Wow.
So for 19, was able to go to Australia. Absolutely
Wow.
fantastic track in Melbourne. I mean, Australia is under fire right now. We hope that they get through it well. But
Is that near the fire? Like,
well, Melbourne's in the city. Most of the fires that are right now
Is on the outskirts.
Are on the outskirts.
Okay.
So yeah, so we're all hoping they pull through.
yeah, no kidding. Going back to the to Monza, and it's like, we were talking offline about on just the whole I guess even the cost of it, but to get out there. So it's in Italy,
Right?
okay, but you need to stay in France.
No.
You don't have to, but so explain the whole concept of that.
Okay, so the one race that we were talking about was Monaco, and that's in France.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so that's almost
So much what I
that's
fucking
almost like going to Abu Dhabi, right? With
Yeah.
with the one of the richest cities in the world. Monza's just north of Milano, Italy.
Right.
You can basically drive into it, pick a hotel outside of Monza proper, maybe downtown Milano or
Right.
near Milano. Milano has a subway; you can get in everywhere.
Right.
The tickets are pretty affordable,
Okay.
right? Because you're sitting with your Scuderia Ferrari other club members from all
Okay.
over the world.
Right.
One of the perks of being part of the club. With Monza too, I mean, I'm fortunate that my heritage was with family near Venice.
Yes.
So I was able to stay with relatives.
Nice.
And at the same time, en route to Monza, hit
Yeah.
the Amarone country of Valpolicella and hit a bunch of wineries.
That's
which was
what I'm
fantastic.
fucking talking about.
Yeah, and then another big thing if you're Italian and you're from the north is grappa.
Yeah.
Be able to go to a couple of different distilleries and check that out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then when you finally get to Milano and you're in the center of it,
Right.
I mean, there's a Ferrari store there, so they have this whole thing going on the whole weekend, right?
So they get you, like they know how to play the perfect part of that whole, and they should, that's how they do it. Rob Mancini is online with,
right on.
and he goes, "You're with the Ferrari lunatic Alfe Manias." So I see a whole bunch of people online here. It's great to see everybody on here. It's too many to name, but I mean, James Attard, he came online. He wrote, "Montreal did a great job this year with the crowd control off the island at the end of the race. Way better than in the 90s after a long absence following Senna's death." He'll go back next year with Eddie Aguirre and Adriano De Paulo. Great time, highly recommend. I'm going to have to go back there for sure. And Stacy Bell's online. She says she's actually learning a lot about cars, and which is great. Maybe this is a great educational. Steve Johnson loves the fact that we're doing this podcast. He's a great guy. He's actually commented a lot about on the whole aspect of the podcast, which is great. I enjoy doing it. It's all fun and it's just, listen, it's raw, it's real. Yes, I do a little monologue of the questions we go through, but most of the time we just wing it and then just talk about it. So to go back to Monaco. So 2 places, the best spots to be at are where?
In Monaco? Would be the Fairmont, which is that hairpin that you see them going down and turning on the hill.
Right.
Or on a boat right on the
Right.
harbor. Those
Okay.
are the 2 best spots.
So either you're on a balcony of a fucking apartment, okay, or you're on a boat,
Yeah,
right?
even though there are track seats.
Even though the track says, I've never seen one on there. Eve's online. She says, "What are we drinking?" So I want to take a little minute or two, Alfie, and Eve wants to know what we're drinking right
now.
now.
What we're drinking in Ferrari fashion is a Lambrusco from Modena, Italy. For those that don't know what Lambrusco is, it's actually a sparkling red wine. almost similar, but a lot more fruitier than a Prosecco or the Asti Spumante gang that's out there. Yeah, so.
And I'm going to have all the pictures and I'll have all the links posted on my website right after the podcast. So you can we get this locally or?
Absolutely. Available at the LCBO. I purchased it just before Christmas.
Nice.
Saw it there and figured, hey, perfect for the holidays.
I love it. And do you have to chill it?
No, it's drank at room temperature. That's
Drink at room
part.
temperature. So I'm going to post everything on our website about it. This wine is fucking delicious.
Yeah.
He brought over red and a white, which we're going to open up soon. And Louis Simeone, who is I think is a sommelier. He's
definitely a sommelier.
This guy is fantastic. And if he's logged in tonight and he wants to chime in, he can on Facebook. We're on Facebook Live. We're on Twitch TV. And we're on the housemusicradio.ca, DJ Dave Live. We're fucking everywhere tonight. It'll all be recorded live and posted on my YouTube site. And this is going to be good. So we're going to continue on, and I'm actually learning a lot about the Formula One. That everyone that associates Formula One, you think, just fast race cars of Mercedes, Ferrari, how it was Renault or whatever. But there's a lot more to it, and like there's so much more to it that you can't even fathom. It's just, you can't talk about it. It could take forever to. But I'm glad you got to travel around to different parts of the world. And my brother-in-law Stefan, who is a Formula One fan, and he PVRs it, and he hates it when I tell him who's going to win it. He doesn't talk to me till the end of the day, but he enjoys it. He was going to come by tonight to sit in and have a few beverages with us and talk about it as well. We touched on your travel time. Now, for people who actually want to try this out, or let's say, I want to know what it takes to go to Abu Dhabi or Australia or Japan or wherever, like, where do you go to where do you do you have to go through a broker? Do you go through someone that knows what they're doing?
Yeah, so you have basically 3 ways of doing it, and I've done all 3.
Okay.
So basically, you could plan it all yourself.
Right.
During the off season's the best time because you got to book flights, find hotels that are available.
Right.
The tickets are available from F1.com.
Okay.
There's also other agencies you can source them through. If you're looking for a obviously more expensive experience, you can go to F1 Experiences. They provide paddock passes. You can go all out with the table beside the track with the hors d'oeuvres and the wine being served all day.
You can go full out.
Money's limitless.
From mild to wild.
Mild to wild. Or you can do like we did with the club. We have an excellent travel agent who has a whole bunch of canned F1 trips.
Okay.
Her name's Nancy Ferragine. I'll throw out a shout out to her from Vision Travel.
Nice.
She's got everything from Spa to Singapore to Australia.
Oh, excellent. So there's packages that...
These are packages, but they're vacations. So
gotcha.
It's not like, we do it many times and just fly in on the Thursday and we're flying out on the Monday.
Right.
This is like... 7 days, you're seeing part of the country,
right.
You're seeing the best things in that country. Like Australia was 10 days, 5 days in Melbourne, 5 days in Sydney.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and the thing is, you can do it in any way and your budget provides for.
Right.
So Montreal, you can do it on the cheap.
Okay.
Or you could do it a very expensive. We were talking earlier, a lot of the hotels in Montreal require a 3 and 5 night stay.
Right.
So flights to Montreal, if you catch a good sell-off, $350.
Right.
Otherwise, they're in the $550 range. It's a
right.
5.5 hour drive if you want to drive it.
I remember that it used to be when I went to Montreal. I went a couple times. Took my brother-in-law, and I had the opportunity, like I was telling you offline, that I built this crazy BMW, and BMW calls me up and says, "Hey, listen, wanting to come down," and they comped me the tickets, they comped me the room. I brought a BMW down, and I staged it with BMW's manufacturers row at St. Catherine Street. And that was the best experience I ever had. I'm pulling up, and I was driving. I got there late. Okay, so St. Catherine's is packed. You know how fucking packed it is. Okay, so I get there. I'm running late. I must have drove. I'm not gonna say how fast I drove, but I drove extremely fucking fast to get to Montreal. I think I was there like, way under the 4 hour mark, way under. And anyways, that's another story. So I get there, and it's like I see the guy that's supposed to let us through, and there's like thousands of people in front of us, and I had my brother-in-law in the car, and we're driving in, and it's like I don't even know where to go. So someone knew what we're supposed to do. So it was like parting of the sea. It's like the security just moved everybody over, and I just drove right through. And the feeling of it, like I felt like $1 million. I felt like a king just driving up, but they're so organized, and that's what I liked about Formula One is that you're not going to find anything out. I guess everything's all planned perfectly by the time, by the minute, and yes, there's wiggle room for certain things, but all in all, I think it is a very well organized event.
Montreal's definitely embraced it. It's changed over the last 20 years where Crescent Street was the only street that was shut down.
Okay.
Now St. Catherine, part of it's closed down between Crescent Street. Peel has a party on it that stretches over 2 blocks. St. Denis has a party on it that stretches over a few blocks. They've just built, just as you get off the subway on the island, a complete amphitheater, which we think they'll probably end up doing some concerts there associated with the F1 weekend. The only thing with Montreal, you have to realize the race is on an island.
Right.
You got to get to the island. So you have 2 choices. You have subway or a ferry from old Montreal. So, as Jamie attested to, you're in a cattle herd on the Sunday, no matter what time you go and what time you leave.
Right.
We've learned through the years to stay till the Monday because the drive back on a Sunday night is brutal because everybody's driving back.
Everybody is.
Everybody's driving back from Montreal. Even if you fly, you got to get to the airport.
Right.
It's always a mess. We trained it for a lot of years. That's probably one of your best bets.
Okay.
If you've never done it, do it by train. You let somebody else do the drive. You can
Sure.
just enjoy it, have a glass of wine, play on your laptop, do whatever you want.
Nice.
The subway, you buy the weekend pass. So it's one fee.
Okay.
You get a card and you swipe it all weekend. It's fantastic.
Excellent.
It gives you access to the subway all weekend. Montreal is a city where the subway will take you anywhere.
Right.
Kind of Toronto will be there in 10 or 20 years. We're not there yet.
Right.
Montreal's a great city. If you haven't done it, it's probably one of your cheapest ways to do a Formula One race. I mean, we're here. We're in Canada, right?
Well, I have a friend of mine, Mike Pellizzari's online, and he's getting married. And he's having his bachelor party in Montreal for the F1. So that I'm sure is going to be a freaking gong show. And Mike, I hope your dad's going to be down there. And shout out to Ross and Mike Pellizzari, the great guys. A huge BMW guy, actually. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just a well-run machine. It's like the organization is impeccable there.
Well, the other thing, too, is with the auto racing, it's not just F1 cars all weekend. You have the Formula 2s, you have the Porsches, you have the Ferrari Challenge.
Right.
There's usually, we've seen Nissan Micras on the track.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
One tire into the air, into the corners. So it's a whole day of racing.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Now, there's some fun stuff I want to talk about as well.
Okay.
Being a F1 fan, have you ever met an F1 driver? And tell me when.
The interesting part about that is, and this is going back to the early 2000s, we ended up getting into a hotel where Ferrari was staying.
Wow.
And this is the Schumacher years.
Wow.
So we got to meet John Todd, who's still involved with F1. He's the head of safety. Oddly enough, we were the riffraff staying at this hotel compared to everybody else. In the morning, we'd see Jackie Stewart on the way out, and he'd say, "Hey, guys, have a great day." Absolute gentleman. Through the years, I've met people in F1 that I didn't even know who they were. When we were in Austin on the Sunday night, we went to a steakhouse. We ended up meeting Ecclestone and Christian Horner, who's the principal for Red Bull Racing. Didn't even know who he was. And so that's kind of the funny. Australia, we got to go to an after party on the Sunday night. Bunch of drivers there.
Nice.
This year in Montreal, went on the Thursday. The pit lanes are open. So you can see, I got to meet some of the Ferrari guys. Got access into the paddock, met a bunch of the drivers. So it was actually pretty good for those that are Ricardo fans. He's an absolute riot. I got a hat signed by him. Hat signed by a bunch of the Ferrari guys. But
Awesome.
is an absolute gentleman. Yeah, these guys are just amazing. And I'll give a shout out to Lewis Hamilton too, because I saw him going to qualifying on the Saturday, and there was a young girl screaming out his name from above in the paddock, and he sent his assistant to go get her and bring her down.
Wow.
So that's real class. He didn't leave until he signed all the merchandise of all the kids standing around him.
Love
so
that.
I mean, there's more to the racing than
Sure.
just that, right?
Right.
When you see the drivers actually acknowledge the fans, it's really great.
And not just the egos that gets them, and you know, oh, I'm Mr. Big Shot, you know, leave me alone, right? It's like, I love it when they engage in the audience, engage in the crowd, and they'll stop. I like that. That tells me it's pure class on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Pure class. Now, you probably, since you met some of the drivers, I mean, obviously, you know, I would love to have met, you know, Michael Schumacher. You know, not because of, obviously, because of the horrible accident. You know, it's just the fact that I think when I was at that era of time when I was watching Formula One, he was probably the most talented driver.
He was the icon.
He was the icon.
Yeah.
And I think today, people that associate F1 would still use his name, Michael Schumacher. You know,
statistically, he's the highest point acquirer of any driver. He's got 7 world championships.
Wow.
I mean, the crazy part is his birthday's January the 3rd. He's 51, so he's our age.
Jeez.
And in those days, we were looking at him like he was a superstar and what he could do on the track. You know, Lewis Hamilton, if he stays with Mercedes, will probably, you know, attain the 7th championship, probably attain the 8th championship.
You think so?
I think he will. Yeah, Mercedes they have a package right now that's just amazing. Red Bull and Ferrari are probably right there as well. So 2020 is going to be amazing season. You know, we have to see what happens, right? Because anything can happen in F1.
What are some of the major changes? Like, what's going to change in F1 like that? That has been leading up to it, and you notice that now they got to change this. Is there anything that they're in the rules?
So in 2021, they're completely new cars, redesigned.
Oh, they are? Okay.
So the difference that exists today, especially we're talking about the tire brands, etc.
Right.
So right now, Pirelli's a title sponsor. As we mentioned, they bring the tires specifically just for that race. They're mounted and dismounted. The rims right now are manufactured by the car. So Ferrari has their own rims.
Right.
Mercedes has their own rims.
Right.
It's a package in 2021.
Okay.
Pirelli will supply the standard rim, and they'll supply the tire, which is a completely different
Gotcha.
change. So it's going to equalize that whole market with the advances they can have with heat dissipation with the rims.
Right.
Engine probably be very similar power plant wise. They're talking about refueling, but that brings a level of risk into it.
Gotcha.
The teams, I think, have finally, you know, said that they, you know, for 2021 they've accepted the design styles. They're all going to be scrambling for that 1,000th of a second change that they can attain.
Right.
The big difference right now is we're seeing a lot of young drivers come in. Charles Leclerc came through the Ferrari Drivers Academy. You mentioned Schumacher, Mick Schumacher's in FP2 right now. He came through the Ferrari Drivers Academy, very promising. Lando Norris with McLaren had an awesome season. You have Albon. A lot of these younger drivers that are starting to look really good on the track compared to a lot of these senior drivers like Hamilton, Vettel, Ricciardo.
There's a lot of great talent out there.
Absolutely.
How old do you have to be in order? It's like hockey. You can get drafted to a team but not play. You could be 17 or 18, 19 and be drafted to a team, but not actually go out and play hockey. So is that the same way as like they have an academy where they'll look at you, they'll find this young talented driver and sign him on a team, but not yet have him in the car?
So I think the reality is the Ferrari Drivers Academy is exactly that. They're looking for the next star driver and bringing these young guys through it. Most of these guys start in karting.
Right.
They're recognized in karting. They're put into an FP4 car.
Right.
We have a great driver from Toronto, Nico, and I'm not going to get his Greek name right, Christopoulou or something like that.
Okay.
We'll put it up on the site after.
Yeah, for sure.
I met him on the plane back from Mexico City. He's an FP4.
Nice.
He's at the age where he can only race in Mexico. He won in Mexico City last year. Canadian driver, Canadian anthem.
Nice.
Fantastic. So, the FP2 drivers, a lot of them coming through. So it's very similar to hockey, right? You know the NHL, the Stars, and you watch the OHL and you see them come through. We just saw the juniors win on the weekend.
Right.
Those guys are all going to be future NHL players. So you're seeing them come up through the ranks.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. I mean, I think there's a ton of drivers, a ton of talent out there. Whether I think most of it's natural, obviously natural ability. But then again, it's like, how do you get noticed? Like, yes, you have, it's like, again, like sports, you have an agent. So when you're 14, 15 years old, you're going to hire an agent to promote the shit out of you. Okay. To call those guys in and say, hey, listen, this guy's going to be the next F1 driver. Come and have a look at him. So they send scouts out. They'll look at it. Oh yeah, this guy's good. Let's sign him, or let's have a look at him. And not knowing that that's a possibility that what happens in Formula One, but I can definitely see that type of mentality, that type of of what happens like that.
There's definitely a part of that, the scouting part. Plus, they're racing the same track that same weekend. The FP2s are there. So
they are, okay.
Know, right?
Right.
So they see all these drivers. They know them. They've seen them come up through the ranks.
Nice.
Many of their managers are the same managers that are the managers for their actual drivers today.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting how the sport's going to change in the next few years. It's definitely getting younger. And it's interesting because a lot of these guys have started playing, even though they've done the in-car stuff, they do all this, the computer games and all that stuff.
All the simulators, the simulators is a huge thing, and you touched on the subject of that. We have a simulator at our company, and it's great for road racing tracks from Watkins Glen to Sebring to Mosport. But then you watch these ones that they're training with, these guys like. I think it was on Netflix, a show where it was, I don't know, McLaren. And the fucking simulator, it was right around you from left to right, this round screen, and it was so real, and the training of it and the telemetry of the simulator was exactly how it was if you were in a car. So you would train and you'd train like, honestly, 7-8 hours a day. You're in this car training, and you're racing, you're practicing. And even the technology of the tires the data was inputted to this simulator, and so it's identical to the car, to the track, to the car, to the driver. All the engineers are watching, or they're reviewing all the data. It is phenomenal on how these drivers are driving in this simulator, and it's exactly like a car. You're on the track. Mind-boggling.
It's absolutely that. So I mean, and then you probably see it on TV where you're seeing all the race engineers and the team principals. They're scanning the whole race and all the data being fed back from the cars, because they're basically looking for any anomaly that could indicate they're going to have a problem.
Sure.
Right. I mean, it's not
before it happens,
so they can try to react to it. A lot of times, based on engines and stuff, engines grenade. You see the smoke shows.
Oh yeah.
Blow up and stuff.
How much are one of those engines, anyways?
The whole car's 18 million. So.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts.
And I think the rule is that if they blow an engine at qualifying, what happens? Like they can't change. They have to use their backup car, or they can't change it.
So in the old days, they could just change cars.
Right.
So when you're seeing a car basically get into a collision on the Saturday, they actually rebuild the car.
So rebuild that car that actually crashed.
That crashed.
So they don't use their spare car.
No, there are no more spare cars. They're rebuilding that car.
So they can't. So there's no spare cars.
Basically, no, there wouldn't be any spare cars. They're completely rebuilding that car from the cockpit. So when it arrives, I mean, I saw it on the Thursday. They're basically assembling it.
So the car comes in like just the tub.
Just basically the tub and the chassis, and they're putting it all together.
Because they have the wings, aerodynamics for each track, so it comes pretty much stripped.
All you got is the shell.
Right.
That you're adding to it and then putting on the wings, and then the tires are delivered by Pirelli and they're being mounted. That's mind-boggling still on how Pirelli can have that contract and no one else can have that contract.
And also that when I was in Montreal, and I think I was there on the Thursday. Actually, we came down Wednesday, and they're still arriving with a lot of the equipment and so forth. And you see the drivers coming in their little golf carts and whatever. But it's like there's a separate crew just for loading up, packing up, tear down, go, and do it again.
Yep.
It's not the guys that are in the crew, pit crew. They have their own separate guys that come.
It's almost like a rock band going in and doing a concert.
Right.
You have the delivery people and the packup people, and then
good way to put it.
Then you have the assembly people that are there, and the assembly people are all engineers. They're either computer based,
right,
mechanically inclined.
Nice.
A lot of them have to deal PR inclined.
Right.
They all have their own people that basically get the drivers in and out, do the pit stops, organize, strategize. They're all doing different things. Know the rules, what they can do, can't do.
The whole logistics factor of that is a separate thing.
Especially when the week before they're in Azerbaijan, and the next week in 2020 they're going to be in Montreal. So normally you were in Monaco, and then you had like a 2-week split, right?
Right.
And then you went to Montreal.
Jesus, how long is that going to be?
Well, they have 2 different planes. One plane goes to one part of the world, and the other plane arrives for the
no
next part
way.
of the world. Yeah, they're all brought on cargo planes.
And the car is $18 million. So could you imagine what the whole team, the cost of the entire team, it would be like hundreds of millions of dollars.
So when you look at Netflix did that awesome show for the 2018 season.
Okay.
They were talking about the midfield.
Right.
So you have the Red Bull, the Mercedes,
right,
and Ferrari with budgets in excess of $500 million a year.
Wow.
And then you have the
and that's mid-pack.
Those are the top.
Oh, that's the top guys.
And
okay.
Your mid-packs are anywhere between 150 to $400 million a year. And then you're seeing teams with smaller budgets actually outperform teams with bigger budgets.
Wow.
So, driver has
sure
a capacity in that. It's pretty amazing.
That's
why for anybody who really doesn't understand F1, that's a great place to start.
No kidding. And we talked about the fact that, there's a Ferrari Challenge races that used to be there. I have some clients that used to race in those series. And the sound of those, the F430s, but I remember back in the day when the 360s were running it. And the F430s and the sound of those cars going around the track, it was like music.
Well, and the interesting part of the days with the 360s out there were that they were owner operated. So
that's right.
They crash it, that's their car. They're paying for it.
Oh, yeah.
So there was one of the prominent drivers was a doctor out of Houston during the early 2000s. And, the guy was an excellent driver. But on qualifying, he hit the wall. Tore the whole back end off the car. The next day, brand new back end on it. So, that came right out of his pocket, right? That's
the thing. So you're privateers.
Right.
And you don't go in with massive sponsorships unless you can get it, yes. Yeah. But it's privateers. And these cars are owned by the drivers, I would say 98% of the time. There's some guys that are hired drivers if it was Ferrari backed up. And yeah, you crash those cars, you're done. So essentially when you crash an F1 car, I don't know what goes on in the driver's mind. It's like, if the driver makes a mistake, and we always wonder, and they'll always figure that out with telemetry, and the data telemetry is like, what happens when a guy wipes out a car, or if he comes in too hot, late braking, knocks the guy, T-bones the guy, what happens to those guys? Does one get penalized? Does it go under review?
So any contact or any odd things that happen in the track go under investigation.
Okay.
So that was the interesting part with Montreal this year, or I should say in 19, where Vettel was leading the majority of the race, and Hamilton was putting pressure on him. Vettel had made a mistake in one of the chicanes and came across Hamilton and was penalized basically, I believe it was 5 or 10 seconds. Well, at that point, Hamilton just had to stay behind him
to win.
So it ruined the race. So what you saw later on in the season, and there's the infamous, Vettel moving the number 2 and the number 1 signs in the pit lane and all that fun stuff. But what you saw later on in the race and the uproar that happened as a result of it was the FIA started looking at these things with the racing in mind.
Gotcha.
And providing the penalties either after the race and allowing the racers to decide who wins.
Gotcha.
So that was probably a positive for the sport this year. Whether you favored, the Mercedes or the Red Bulls or whatever, right? Let them race.
Let them race.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I always wonder, like, whatever happens to the guys that made a mistake and crashed a car, do they have to, they got to pay? Do you got to pay anything, or is it just part of the whole racing aspect of it? And I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars a corner if something happens, and they break in a heartbeat. Like you go over those turtles pretty quick or pretty hard. That's it. Those carbon wishbones, they're done. They snap like twigs, right?
Yeah, we saw that at Austin this year, where one of the Ferraris hit one of the curbs a little harder and ended up losing the rear end on it. That's
crazy. You mentioned about the about a club that you manage, or so explain to us this Ferrari club that you talk about.
So I don't manage it.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's fill up our wine glass here, because this wine is delicious. And again, all these links we posted on the website, and is fantastic. It's great. So
the club, Scuderia Ferrari Club of Toronto,
right?
Joined it in 2016. It's a great club. It's run by a board of almost 20 people.
Okay.
Basically, it's officially licensed out of Maranello, Italy.
Oh, nice.
It's very affordable. It's $60 for your membership. The membership includes your kit, which comes directly from Maranello. It has a membership card in it that provides a whole bunch of discounts, especially if you travel the races. So
you're recognized.
Basically recognized. So I'll give you the difference.
Right.
So the first time I was went to Italy in 2017.
Right.
And basically decided I was going to tour Automobile Valley from Modena to Bologna, and went to a bunch of the museums and stuff. I went to both museums. I went to the Ferrari Museum in Modena, which is the original factory of the car making, etc., and the race factory, to Maranello, where the factory exists today, and they have the F1 Museum. You walk in, you're wearing Ferrari paraphernalia, you're wearing your lanyard with your card, and they treat you differently. Okay. They know that you're there. You respect the cars. They'll let you get near the cars.
Right.
Take pictures with the cars. They'll ask people to move when you're taking pictures in the place. So it's a completely different experience being a member.
Sure.
The $60, in addition to the kit and all the little trinkets that are in it, typically there's kind of a souvenir, a race hat. Last year was a T-shirt. That only the club members get. Okay. One of the other benefits with being part of the club in itself, I mean, we're the second largest club in the world. We're the largest one outside of Italy. 800 plus members. Every month we typically do a dinner. We do 2 galas a year. One to celebrate the car release in February. One to celebrate the Canadian Grand Prix in June. We have the typical adult Christmas party. We do a kids party at Christmas with Santa. There's always something going on.
Right.
A dinner a month. We do a picnic in August.
Do you actually have races televised at your club? Like, is there a clubhouse?
So there is a clubhouse.
Okay.
We're at 551 Jevlin Drive. We're on basically the left wall of Shoeless Joe's head office.
Are you okay?
Yeah. So you have to go down the left wall, park there.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with F1, it happens when the race happens. So if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and we're watching Australia, or it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and the race is already on in Montreal, we're there for the race. A lot of times on the Saturday, we're open for qualifying.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, when you've been DJing out and I've had to leave early to
I remember that.
Open up to let people in.
You're like, Dave, I gotta go. I gotta open up these guys,
Yeah, and then we have we typically do breakfast.
Okay.
Because most of the races are in the morning.
Right.
They're in Europe, 6 hours ahead.
Right.
The oddball ones that are really late at night, we kind of tone it down, and there's only about 20 of us diehards in there, as opposed to 50 or 60
Sure.
where we have the morning races.
The morning race, I think you get everyone coming in the morning race, or the majority of them. Do you have to own a Ferrari to become a member?
Absolutely not. It's about the racing.
Gotcha. The passion.
The passion for the Ferraris, obviously.
Right.
We obviously don't want guys wearing Mercedes shirts in the place.
No, not an Aston Martin shirt either.
That's where we draw the line.
Yeah.
So it's about the passion. You call it an addiction. It's more the passion.
Right.
So So that's the first question. Do I need to own a Ferrari?
Right.
No. Is it a guys club? No.
Okay.
We have younger members, junior members. We have a lot of females in the club.
Right.
A lot of them come to spend time with their husbands and watch the races. A lot of them go on the trips.
Sure, that's all right.
And the whole thing, the picnics. It's family picnic.
Right.
So it's a very family-orientated club. We want it that way. We want to encourage more females to join.
Okay.
Obviously, being a male sport, you're going to have a dominance of males.
You're going to get that, right? And I like the fact that women, women that are loving the race cars, and just being part of that aspect. You go to the race, you see women that are loving this. They're really diehard fans of it. Tina Colucci's online, and she wants to know what kind of wine this is again. So just if you can.
It's from Modena, Italy. It's a Lambrusco, so it's a sparkling red.
Okay, so I'm going to put this on the website after my podcast. Well, when I have everything all ready to go, it'll be all up on there. Alfie brought over a red, and we got a white that we're gonna try out as well, or finish off, or whatever we're gonna do. But it is, it's a pleasure learning about the Formula One, the history, and Alfie sharing his story of his experiences of being traveling around the world, watching these races, from how to get to these packages of getting on to to Mexico, to Abu Dhabi, whatever. There's all these different packages to go with. So I just want to usually. I'm interested in learning more about the Ferrari stuff, about just F1 itself. So I'm going to do the music curation. I'm going to do that music later on tonight. So I'm going to sit here and talk to Alfie for the remaining amount of time, and we're gonna end the podcast, and then I'll take care of the music another time. But I really enjoy the fact that we're here. We're enjoying the wine. We're going to chat a bit more about it, and The music that I've chosen for this set is more. It's more. You're going to hear it afterwards. More of a tech house. It's more upbeat, great house music, great vibe. So you got the speed of the cars. You're going to feel the vibe of this set after my conversation with Alfie about tonight. And it seems, Alfie, that a big part of life, if I'm not mistaken, and the passion, is F1. And we talked about this before we went online and said, how much more do I have of this? Or what's left, or what do I want to do? I don't know how long I can do this for. Now, question for you. Does it consume most of your daytime activities? I know we all have jobs. Okay, does it consume most of your daytime? How do you know when you've had enough, or how do you know when you're I'm going to continue on with this?
So the interesting part, and we chatted about it earlier, is everybody has a bucket list of tracks they want to go see. Mm-hmm. So I'm reaching the end of my bucket list.
Okay.
I'm hoping in 2020, Montreal's the standard. Been doing it for so many years. We're talking about switching to Mexico City.
Okay.
In my opinion, it's a more affordable race, even though it's in a different country.
Gotcha.
My bucket list is Belgium. It's Spa. It
Nice.
has probably the nicest track of all the F1 races from a historical point of view. Monaco's another one. Monaco is another realm. You're going to the most expensive city in the world, and there's different ways of doing it, but you're talking about large money, and the reality is I'm not wealthy, so it's either you're paying the mortgage or
Right.
you're going to an F1 race. You got to save up for it. You got
Right.
to plan it. So we do it basically, other than the trips that we've done with Vision Travel, which are more of a vacation.
Right.
When you're doing an F1 weekend, you're flying in, you're doing the race, you're not really seeing a lot of everything else that's
Gotcha.
there. You're doing that in the after hours, and then you're spending your whole time at the track, and you're flying out on the Monday. So it's kind of a crazy weekend.
Yeah, so that would be definitely a crazy weekend. And what track was it where you could actually fly into and fly out of?
Interesting part, and
Helicopter wise.
So I want to do Monaco.
Okay.
And with Nancy, we chatted about how to do it. You stay in Nice, and she's got two great packages where you're actually watching the race from a ship in the harbor, which is the ideal
Sure.
checklist, bucket list. Who cares having a seat, whatever. Being on a ship is completely off the hook. And, she's got 2 packages where you stay in Nice, you take the train in, or you can take a helicopter in each day. And the difference is about $3,000. So you either do it one way or you do it the other. But that's kind of a trip of a lifetime. You're going to be spending, between $8,000 and $10,000. That's going to be years from now for me.
That's crazy.
But, the club's going this year to Monaco. They have a very affordable trip. They're staying in Italy. They're going to train in each day. They have track seats. I'm not sure how many positions they have left open for it.
Right.
Montreal's a standard trip for us. Monza's a trip. We have a great package for that.
Right.
Mexico. Tour. Mexico we did for the first time last year. I tell you, they got a fabulous track. Mexico City's just insane traffic. So you got to factor that in.
Right.
We stayed like 3 kilometers from the track, and it took us over a half hour to get there every day.
Jesus.
Absolutely insane.
Wow.
But their facility is top notch. The culture they put into the show. We had Tiesto for an hour after the race.
Yeah.
Play.
Nice.
Just phenomenal.
And you think, I think Mexico, and I you think of the good areas, the bad areas of Mexico. Okay. But I guess once you get all the pack, if you're going to go in blind and try to wing it, you're probably asking for problems, asking for trouble. But if you go in and you've got a package, you've gone through an F1 package where an organization says, okay, you know what, we're going to make a vacation out of it. You've got like 5 tickets. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go into here. You're going to see this person. You're going to do that, and you got everything's all set. I need to have that type of structure. I can't go into I can't fucking fly into somewhere and say, okay, now where do I go? Because that guy says he's a tourist. All right, I'm gonna.
So you're not willing to go to Austin and hop in an Uber for 40-minute cab ride?
I would. Austin's actually not bad. I wouldn't mind doing that. I don't think places like Mexico, I would want to be there and trying to wing it, especially with, and I don't judge anybody. I don't really. It's. There's issues everywhere, okay? I think my ideal place that I would want to see an F1 race, I would love to do Abu Dhabi for sure. Montreal, I've been there. I love it. I would do it again, knowing that they've improved it quite a bit. But you're the way you said about how you got to plan it in order to avoid the traffic. So you told me that what you do is you will wait till the race is over, and you'd let the monsoon of people rush out of the fucking place, but you'll be on the top. You'll be on the top level of the grandstand, having some cigars. You drink it away, sun shining, everyone's gone. Then you can make your way out.
Yeah. So we basically, we've been sitting in Senna Curve now for over 5 years.
Right.
There's basically 4 rows of 2 people in each row that were in there.
Right.
We're a group of 8 that go.
Okay.
And so if Hamilton wins, we have Mercedes and Hamilton fans in front of us.
Oh, do you?
So we do basically smoke cigars and do tequila shots after the race.
Nice.
And if Ferrari wins, then we smoke cigars and do grappa or some other liqueur type of shot.
All right.
Interesting part this year, if anybody watched the qualifying on Saturday, I was actually on TV waving the Ferrari flag, going crazy when we qualified.
Nice.
So there's a highlight from every race.
Yeah, for sure, and to have that experience, and to highlight the experience of having that ability to do that, and it's like a great feeling. And you don't have you go to soccer games, okay? You have Chelsea fans, you have Liverpool fans, and that don't get along, and they have to sit in separate areas. With F1, even though you have diehard Ferrari fans, Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes fans, in the end, everyone gets along.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe there's some fights afterwards, but
what I meant by that is there's still the competitiveness, right?
Absolutely.
You want your driver to win.
Sure.
You want your team to win.
Right.
But when you're seeing a driver that has an absolutely amazing weekend, and they may not even podium, you notice it.
Okay.
So, because you're basically watching every lap. You're watching the times change between lap to lap. Are they getting faster? Are they getting slower?
Right.
Are they gaining? Are they making moves on the driver in front?
Right.
Are they constantly challenging? Or are they sitting back?
Right.
And so when you're at the track, and a lot of people are probably saying, well, you only see a portion of it. All around the track, there's TV screens showing the television broadcast.
But like large TVs, large screens.
Large screens. So you actually get to see what everybody's seeing on
Right.
TV as well. So the interesting part, and I have fanatics that stream it, and they're analyzing stuff on their computers during the race. So we're texting back and forth of what's going on, and they'll tell me, oh, they just announced this, because we don't really get sound at the track, and you'll know that someone's experiencing potential brake failure,
right.
or they'll notice
It's
something.
actually not bad. That's actually a pretty good idea.
So it's actually pretty neat when you're basically mingling your information being at the track and what
Right.
you're noticing with somebody who's streaming it on TV. And you mentioned social media.
Right.
I mean, the amount of Ferrari clubs that are online between Instagram and
Oh my
Facebook
I'm
is
sure you get that by the
absolutely crazy.
second. You get that by the second.
It's absolutely crazy. And
man.
actually, Ferrari has this gentleman by the name of Freddie who actually posts during the whole race what's happening
Wow.
lap by lap. So it's pretty amazing once you get onto his Facebook page and seeing that.
That's awesome.
So
man.
yeah,
that is awesome.
It's kind of our own little realm in there. But again, like I mentioned earlier, even though you're passionate about Ferrari and the drivers that are for it, you appreciate the other drivers. Like Bottas is amazing, absolute gentleman. Hamilton's the same. Ricciardo's probably one of the funniest and nicest guys on the track that you could potentially meet. It's quite interesting.
I think it's just like any sport. You have a good team, you got a good players, they engage a crowd. They also, I've seen where on social media, like you have, especially on Twitter, because it's a lot easier to engage in a crowd globally by just one post. And like you'll have F1 drivers converse with, just random people about things, so they are out there listening to you and as a fan. And I guess we're all fans of a sport, whether it's hockey, baseball, basketball, cars. I'm a sports guy. I love all sports. There's very few that I will just go to like more of a hockey style, but racing, it's always been in your blood, and it's in my blood. I don't have the addiction that Alfe has with F1, and so I admire him, and I admire his passion about just everything from the whole conversation from start to finish. And like we've been talking for over an hour, which is fantastic. I really appreciate coming in tonight and going through this. And I want to thank Alfe for being here tonight, being the first podcast of 2020 of a new decade. And every week I'm going to try to have, actually I will have guests that will talk about sharing their story. And the whole thing about, my podcast is, again, it's sharing a story of whether it's myself or whether if it's in this case, Alfe sharing his story about Formula One. I definitely learned a lot from of F1 and I've been going to F1 for years. And I never knew half the shit that you were mentioning about that. And the deep down underground stuff is what I like, and I got to know that. So to go back to it, my podcasts are raw, they're real, they're fun. This is why I do it, is because it's a lot of fun. Alfe brought some great wine that we're going to continue to drink tonight, and it'll all be posted on my website. It's about wine pairing, sharing a story, and wine pairing with great music. So I have a music set that I've lined up for later on tonight. Later on tonight, that I'll put together, and it'll be all up on my YouTube site, Mixcloud. It'll be up on my blog, wherever it's going to be. You're going to find out where it is. Alfe, I want to thank you for coming in tonight.
Thanks for hosting.
And listen, guys, we are having fun. This is amazing. I love seeing everybody out here online. I just saw Matt White joined in. Grace, Tina, Mindy from Florida. What's up, girl? Just a lot of people that tuned in tonight, and especially on the radio side, I noticed a ton of people overseas. I'm not too sure whereabouts in Europe, but a lot in Europe that were tuning in. So it's kind of cool, and it's great fun. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We are gonna go and drink some wine and talk a bit more. I know he's been up since 5 a.m., so I'm not gonna keep him too long. But Alfe, again, buddy, thanks very much for everything.
Absolutely.
And we will see you guys next week as we sign off on House Uncorked episode 8. It is Life of an F1 Addict, and it's a good way. It's all positive. So thanks very much, guys. Peace out, and appreciate it. And James Attard, thanks, buddy. We will talk to you soon. You guys have to find us on our Facebook page, djdavelive.com. You can see all our videos /Uncorked. It's all on there. You can't not find us. We're going to be out there. So, guys, thanks very much. Have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, everyone.